You need to figure it out. That's like dad lesson number one. What is your wife's look of take this baby away before I'm a Lifetime movie? You know what I mean?
That's Andy Shaw, a hilarious dad of three, including twins, who I sat down with to talk about the good and bad about his parenting life at the moment. Andy shares a lot about his transition into fatherhood being a little bumpy and how his anger was getting in the way of being the father he wanted to be. Andy has graciously shared so much of that side of his life on his site, InstaFather.com, and he's helped parents figure out how to become their best self while also laughing a lot along the way. We had such a great conversation about being a parent to twins, how important self-care is, and Andy's thoughts on push presents. It was a joy to talk to Andy and to commiserate a little bit about the trials of being a toddler parent. So let's jump right in. Welcome to the This Is Parenting podcast, a show devoted to sharing the roller coaster journey of parenthood from moms and dads all over the world. I'm your host, Andrea Rhodes. Information and show notes about today's episode can be found at thisisparentingpodcast.com. Let's get started. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a really special guest. Andy Shaw is with me, InstaFatherAndy, as I know him. Hey, Andy, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your family, and I really want to know, tell me about your bedtime routine and what that looks like on a typical day.
Oh, I love, first of all, that you think there's a typical day. That's real cute of you. So I am married and I have three kids. I've got twin 3-year-old girls and I have a 5-year-old son. My son just started kindergarten. We just had our first parent-teacher conference, which is really funny when it's kindergarten because it's just like, well, he's not peeing himself, so you're doing great. My twin 3-year-olds were born prematurely, so they were in the NICU for a bit. So for a while, I was like a NICU dad. That's kind of how I kind of thought of myself. And anybody who's had kids in the NICU kind of know how that goes. But now, like, we're firmly in the toddler world, even as my son kind of graduates out of that. So every day is just a different experience, right? My wife and I both work in higher ed in different fashions. I work full time. She teaches and does a lot of fitness stuff as well. So bedtime routines kind of come down to what's going on that day. So today, for example, I get home and my wife's rushing out the door and I'm doing dinner and I'm doing bath time. I'm reading books. And at this point, my son sleeps in his sister's room. Now you might say, why would a 5-year-old want to sleep in his twin 3-year-old sister's room? I don't know, but about a year ago, he just decided he wanted to sleep in between their twin toddler beds, to the point that we actually bought him a cot to be positioned in between their toddler beds, just so it's all three in a row. At certain points, my one daughter, Quinn, likes to sleep in her sister Hannah's bed. So I have all these beds in my house, and they're down to 2 beds. It's pretty great. In one sense, it's actually easier because everybody's in one room, so we can do one big bedtime. On the other hand, that's a lot of stuff going on. Our cockapoos usually crawl into the beds while they're going to sleep. I'm usually the bedtime guy. I've always been the bedtime guy. That probably stemmed from way back when my wife was nursing our kids, especially when she was nursing the twins, which is just like superhero work. I honestly don't understand how you nurse twins. Actually, what we don't understand is how you nurse triplets. That's a whole different problem. So she would do that, and then I'd start to put them down to bed, and that's been like my thing. I always think that's been my big push as InstaFather, that dads can be more involved than I think they can. And one big part of that is like, take something, make it yours, like make bedtime your thing.
Okay, well, that sounds like a lot for an evening routine, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like it's working for you, and that's what matters. It's kind of one of those things where you have this picture in your mind, as I'm sure you did, about what your bedtime routine would look like, and this probably is not what that was in your head, right?
Oh my God. I think especially maybe guys, because guys in general don't grow up thinking about like what their baby's going to be like. We just don't. But even then, you kind of base stuff on what you see in like a movie or a TV show. I think you just put like your baby down to sleep in some like all white room, because like the nurseries were always all white, which is just stupid because all they're going to do is peel over it anyway. But okay, so you put them down gently and you sing a lullaby that has been passed down from generation to generation, I think. And probably in like 6 different languages, because you got to make sure the baby can speak multiple languages before they're 2. And then they just magically drift off to sleep, and then you sleep for 8 hours in a row. None of those things have happened at all. If you want a real laugh riot, try to put twins down to sleep. It's very funny. They take turns kind of waking each other up. They're like laughing at each other. It's a circus. It's really a circus.
So I could probably answer this question, but tell me, what is something unique about your parenting journey?
Gosh, I think something unique. I mean, the twins part makes it unique in itself, because having twins is its own experience. Even just stuff like, you don't do anything once. Like, you don't just change one diaper, you're changing 2 diapers. When you're taking them out, it's like one has to go potty, which means you have to take both of them out of the car, and you run in both in, and you're in the middle of the gas station trying to like hold a door closed with your foot while your one twin's on a potty and the other one's trying to yank your pants down, a Tuesday. But I think the most unique part of my parenting journey is that, at least for me, is that it's always evolving. Like, I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago or the 6 months before that. I'm just a dad who's constantly learning what he's good at and what he's not good at. It's not like you become a dad and like, okay, now I know how to do everything. I still don't know how to do anything, but it just changes all the time. But also your kids keep growing and changing. That's like the coolest thing for me, to see how they learn new things and get so excited about stuff. It's amazing.
So tell me, what in this moment in time is the worst thing about being a parent?
I think the worst thing is that you're always on when you're a parent. So while some people who don't have a kid in their life, they might, let's say, go home after a long day of work and they might just kick up, grab a glass of wine, watch Scandal, whatever they want to do. But when you're coming home and you're a parent, you're you're instantly on. Your kids actually don't care how your day went. I never had my son say, you know what, how was that project? Did you get through it? Was the boss being good to you today? Or, yeah, I heard you had a tough meeting. Yeah, that's never happened once. It's very inconsiderate. But instead, what you find is that they want you to just be there for them all the time. And it's cool in one way, because you will never feel as needed as you do when your kids are around. But even if you're not feeling great, you have to push through, right? You just have to make stuff happen. You might have to make a perfect paper airplane one moment, and then wipe pee off the floor the next moment, and then go play doctor the next moment after that. It's one thing after another.
So the inverse of that, what's the best parent right now?
The best thing, I think the best thing is that there's still nothing better than seeing my kids smile. Like, nothing better. My daughter Quinn she's like a Disney princess in terms of how happy she gets about stuff. She'll just be like, oh, that's beautiful. And it'll be like a rotten apple. Or it'll be some passing car. She's like, isn't that great? And this big smile on her face. And she's just so happy. I see my daughter Hannah just spin around in the kitchen and just be the happiest girl you've ever seen in the whole world. That kind of look you don't get from anything else. There's nothing I can do or experience or go buy that replaces that. And that's the stuff that makes everything else worth it,
I couldn't agree more with you. The tantrums and the meltdowns and the pee and the poop and just all the frustration, or the constant talking. We're in that phase
The
right now
constant
where,
talking. Oh my
just so much
God.
talking.
Sometimes I would just look at them and say, what are you even saying? They will just think of things to say just to keep talking. They do this classic thing of like, mommy, 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 mommy. And then my wife will say, okay, what do you need? And there's a long pause. And then you realize that they haven't thought of anything to say yet. They just wanted your damn attention. And they're like, clouds are white. Like, you son of a gun. Yep.
Yeah, I have a commute to pick my kids up and go home every day, and that commute home, even though it's like 25 minutes, is the most brutal 25 minutes of my life right now.
I think this is like a non-parent judgment, because I know, like, before I was a parent, I didn't understand stuff. So it's not like anybody's wrong or anything. But one thing I think, if you aren't a parent, I've heard people think like, how can you ever get sick of your kids talking? They're like angels. It's a gift from heaven and all this stuff, right? I can love my kids dearly and still want them to shut the hell up. Like, that doesn't mean I don't love them. It just means that nobody needs to hear that much talking in that short of a period of time. It's
So much talking. I came home the other day and it was just so much. And I tried to escape into the bathroom, which is never the right option. They always find you in the bathroom. But my
yeah.
husband came home shortly after and I gave him the look. And you know, he knows the look. And I'm sure you and your
Yeah.
wife have the look, right? Where it's you're tapping out. I gave him the I'm tapping out look, and then I just went away for a good 5 or 10 minutes by myself just to have silence.
No, I perfectly get what you mean. I've had it where I come home and my wife, who already, again, it's like she's juggling a part-time job as well. She's already doing a lot of the things, but the kids have given her like an afternoon where I didn't even get a text from her because she couldn't like put two thoughts together because it's been that crazy. And I'll get home and I'll just get that look in her eyes and I would just say, okay, kids, why don't we go for a walk? And we'll just start going somewhere. It doesn't matter where, but it's got to be somewhere else.
Yeah. For everybody listening, if you don't know the look, you need to figure the look out. So
Yeah, you need to figure it out. That's like dad lesson number one. What is your wife's look of take this baby away before I'm a Lifetime movie? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Okay, so if you could go back in time and tell your pre-kid self something, what would it be?
Okay, so on the cheat a little bit, I'll think of two things. So one is that what's the best way to? You have to not so much be easy on yourself, but you have to set realistic expectations for yourself. Does that make sense? So it took me a while, I think, to adjust to being a dad, and there's certain points where I still have a tough time with it. And part of that is I was used to what I can accomplish before I became a dad, and I take a lot of value in productivity. So if I took like a personality test, I take a lot of value in what I've done for the day, right? That's how I find value. And of course, when you become a parent, if you get like one thing done in the day, like mowing the lawn might be the thing I get done in the day. Whereas before I can bang out 7 or 8 things. And now, you know, like if you want to go to Target and the grocery store, you might have to pick one. You might get one and you might not get that. So it took me a while to figure that out. And I wish I got told pre-dad Andy, hey, it's okay that the only thing you might get done today is that you make your kid calm down after they've had a tough afternoon. And maybe that's the thing you get done. The parenting in and of itself is a thing. Like, it's not like there's a checklist of things to do today and parenting. It's all wrapped up in the same thing. And I think the second thing would have been to open up earlier on that I was having a tough time with it. That's like probably a universal dad thing anyway. But I'm pretty open about it. If you go on InstaFather.com, you can like you see posts I've written about it. That I went through some stretches where it's just really tough for me. I was dealing with a lot of anger issues. And it was part because I was so focused on like, let's get the next thing done, next thing done, and taking care of my family that I never really looked back and say, okay, am I doing okay? Do I need to kind of talk some things out? And so I kind of bottled that up a little bit. So I've since learned some techniques and practiced on mindfulness and getting up early and doing some meditation and stuff. And that's really helped out a lot.
I think a lot of people can relate to that just jumping into parenthood thing, and you just can't be prepared. The books won't do it. The blogs won't do it. You know, none of that actually prepares you for what parenting is. So I love that you're being so honest about that. Tell me straight, how many hours of sleep are you getting a night?
Okay. So right now, it's fair to say I might get 6. However, 2 of those might be just me and my wife in the bed. 4 of those, or at least 1 kid in the bed, and 1 of those is probably 3 kids in the bed. My son is not a small 5-year-old, so let's keep that in mind. So I'm not getting like 6 quality, like princess hours of sleep. At the worst of it, when my daughters were babies, we're talking like maybe 2. I think 2 would be not in a row because they would alternate who was awake. I remember even like when my son was just my son and he was colicky, that we were sleeping like honestly 15-minute increments because the feeding schedule was crazy because he wasn't getting enough weight and we had this thing we had to do. And it was like 15-minute increments and you would like fall asleep standing up. and you put like the cereal in the fridge and stuff. You've been there. It's like you can't explain to people how tired you get. All you can do is, if you have a friend who just had a baby, be as supportive as you can and like offer to go to their house and watch the baby for an hour so they can go to sleep. Don't ask to hang out. Go to their house, say, I'll watch the baby, I'll give them a bottle, go upstairs, go to sleep. Don't worry about it. That's the best thing you do for a friend with a new baby.
And that friend needs to actually sleep, because with the first kid, people would offer me that. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm sure you want to come and visit and talk.
No,
Second
wrong.
kid, I'm like, no, I'm sleeping.
Yeah. But a second kid, that's the thing. So you talked about like, what would I tell pre-dad Andy? Like, even after the first baby, Andy, you start to learn like what matters and doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to have everything pristine. You don't have to like have the crib perfectly set up and all this stuff. You don't have to have half as many clothes as you end up buying. But the big thing is, take the little victories when you can. If somebody says, hey, can I help you out? Take the help. Don't be too proud. There's no time for pride at all. You have to just take a nap.
Yes, I absolutely agree. There is no time for pride in parenthood. So let me think. What is the dad version of mombi? That's the mom zombie. That's when you're walking around, lack of sleep for the mom. What's the dad version of that?
I think the dad version, that's a great question. So I guess the mom version is like, she just wandering around Target kind of aimlessly in like a hoodie and like trying to get Starbucks, but can't remember if it's in the store or if it's a different Target. The dad version is he has a dad beard. So I've got a beard right now, but this is more like my beard trimmer broke, so I just grew a beard. But the dad version is like, you've got a thick stubble going on and you're just kind of hoping people think it's a thing you're doing on purpose. I know I used to have, like, I would wear a dress shirt every day and I would always have a stain on it for some reason. And you're too tired to notice that stain's there, but everybody's being too polite to tell you. I remember even at like, but I'd drive home and sometimes I'd have to like close my eyes for 30 seconds in the driveway because I thought, this might be my last time. This might be my last shot.
Well, let me tell you,
30 seconds in the driveway. Sweet piece.
The stain on the shirt still doesn't go away. Like, I am still showing up to work regularly thinking
Right?
I'm looking good, and I'm looking down, I'm like, oh, that's definitely oatmeal from breakfast.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like, what
Definitely.
is that stain? You will play, any new parent plays a game of, what is that stain? Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So what do you wish there was less of in parenting culture today?
I think we need to worry less about the specific methods of parenting and more about the outcomes. So if it's, I'm a big advocate of breastfeeding and I'm a big advocate of involved parenting, and that works really well for me. It works well for my family. But there might be a lot of really valid reasons why somebody, let's say, has to do formula feeding for medical reasons or other reasons, or that they would love to be a super involved dad, but the way their job is, they're gone, 5 days out of the week out on the road, and they can't be that dad. And the last thing they need is some jerk like me saying, "How come you don't play with your kid more?" But if the outcome is the same, if your kid feels loved, if your kid feels appreciated, if they're healthy, that's all you can ask for. And we have to stop being so harsh and saying, well, you didn't do it the way I think you should do it, then you're a terrible parent. Terrible parents, there are terrible parents out there, and they're the ones who are purposely neglecting their kids, the ones who are actively, like, mentally or emotionally abusing a kid. Those are actual bad parents. We can't like Instagram judge somebody and say, well, based on this, I think they're not hitting all the checklists of what a real parent should be, because that, I think, contributes to people feeling like they have to be fake about parenting, where every photo they post is their kid just laughing like they're in a Gap ad, and everything's like perfect lighting, and the kid always looks like they've had the best life ever. That's not real. But parents might feel like they need to put that because if they put something about their kid maybe being sad, somebody's going to say, well, if you tried this, then maybe your kid wouldn't be so sad, that kind of stuff.
So how do you think we help that culture in a good way? Like, how do we make that a little bit better?
Well, I mean, I'm a very, very, very small part of it, and trying to find a solution. I think that's just being pretty honest with each other. So you heard me talk about being like angry sometimes and having some issues dealing with emotion. When I started to talk about that, even on my site, I had a lot of parents who say, "Oh my God, I did the same thing. Like, I remember I threw something across the room once, and I had other parents say, I've done the same thing. I didn't think anybody else ever did that. I felt so terrible. And we're not saying that justifies anything, but just knowing there are other parents out there who aren't trying to say that they're like the perfect parent, that means something. And if we all did that a little bit more, I think we'd all feel like, okay, we're all in this together. Because really, when you're a parent, you are in it together with other parents. Even parents you don't even know. Like, my son goes to a public school down the street now. There are all these parents I've never met before. Their influence on their kids now impacts my kid, right? So it only behooves me to make sure I can help as many other parents as I can, and vice versa, that we all feel supported, because aren't we all helping each other's kids?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And I would say I try, even to a fault, like pointing out flaws in my own parenting to like other moms. Can you believe this thing I did the other day? Like, you're never going
Yeah.
to believe how bad I failed my child. And I'm like just so outright with it. And they're kind of looking at me like, okay. But I think it helps, the more you talk about that kind of stuff and make it normal, the better these conversations go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not like you have to constantly make it sound like, oh, I screwed up this and I screwed up that. But it's okay to not, let's say, post for a few days, if your kids are having a rough few days. I don't. My wife and I are big fans of people posting their kids like having a meltdown, because like that's like, you're posting that and like, oh man, so are freaking out. What's going on with that? Like, that's not okay with the kid. They didn't sign up for that. But it is okay to say something like, here's a pumpkin patch photo and everybody's cute. But to be honest, 20 minutes before that, they had a really tough time. And I'm glad we had this little nice moment, but I'm just glad we made it through the day. And then some other moms and dads might see that and say, okay, I thought I the only kid who hated the pumpkin patch, right? Most of the time, if you see a kid out and about doing an event, I can guarantee you they were not all smiles the whole time, especially if they had to wait in line for something.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
every
like
Santa
I was gonna say Santa's
Santa.
coming.
Yeah, if you see a Santa photo and everybody's smiling, first of all, some bribes were had there. Some bribes happened. Second, they need to have a photo of you in line for Santa. That's the photo I want to see. The in line for Santa photo is going to be just everybody just glaring at each other, giving each other the middle finger, I'm assuming. So,
Yeah, waiting in line for Santa only second to waiting in line for a ride at Disney. That's
oh,
where everyone
fair
just
enough.
looks like death in line. What do you and your wife disagree about when it comes to parenting?
Ooh, good question. So, I would say sometimes we might disagree on how to. Sometimes we have a disagreement on the best way to like resolve something. So if one of our kids is having a tough time with something, and it actually goes back and forth, where one of us might say, okay, this, like, cut this off. They're gonna have to remove them from the situation. They've got to figure it out. And the other person might say, okay, let's kind of talk it through and so forth. I usually lean more towards like, let's just cut things off. And my wife, who has the patience of a saint, might be more like, okay, let me talk them through with this and see if they can resolve it on their own. And sometimes my method works and they calm down a minute later. And sometimes her method works a lot better, because all they needed was somebody to just really hear them. And it's really tough too, because our kids have such different personalities. So one method might work one day, and the next method you try with the other kid, and it's not going to work at all. I think the best thing we've done for each other is not to take it personally. If, in the heat of the moment, we're trying to get something done, don't say like, okay, now they're mad at me over the kids did this and I want to do that and they disagreed. It's not like a personal thing. We're just trying to get through parenting together. The best thing I could tell any young couple who has a kid is, you have to learn you can't take the parenting stuff personally. There's going to be so many decisions made. If you get upset over every disagreement over parenting, you're going to be divorced in like 10 months. I swear to God. You gotta take a breath and realize it's not personal. You're trying to raise a human being. That's insane to do.
So did you have that conversation with your wife, or how did you kind of work through that communication barrier?
I think it's just been an ongoing thing. It helped that I married my best friend, and I don't know if that works for everybody. It's funny, when I was growing up, that I would hear girls say like they don't want to date me because I'm their friend, and that might ruin their friendship. which looking back might just be their way of saying they weren't into me. But regardless, I ended up marrying my best friend, and it's been great because we already had a good, solid communication anyway. I don't think we had like a sit down talk of like, okay, when this happens, you're going to do this, because you don't even know what the situations are going to be. But if you have a lot of problems before a baby comes along, resolving things. So it can be like where you're going to live and you're trying to figure out an apartment and you're fighting a lot about that and you're not really listening to each other. Throwing a baby in the mix is like throwing gasoline on a fire, because the baby's going to need you to fix it no matter what. They don't really care if you have your relationship figured out. They just want a resolution. So the best thing you could do is figure out how can we work through things without making everything a level 10 argument. Sometimes like, okay, fine, good, let's try it your way and just leave it at that.
Love it. All right. So I want to kind of end the podcast episode with you just sharing a little bit more about InstaFatherAndy and what you're up to and where people can find you. Tell them a little bit more about that.
Awesome. So you can find me a couple different places. Most of the time you can find me on the bedroom of my daughter's room, trying to get them to sleep. But if you're not looking there, probably holding their hand and hoping to go to sleep. You can find me on Instagram. It's InstaFatherAndy. Twitter is InstaFatherAndy as well. Those are the two main ones. Of course, I'm on Facebook as well. But InstaFather.com is the big thing. If you go in there, you can get some new dad tools, any new dads out there, or if your husband or partner is becoming a new dad, it's got a set of things that I think can really help any new dad. I got everything there from like that mom should get a push present, because I really think moms deserve a push present, to what it was like as a dad when your wife's on bed rest, on hospital bed rest, and kind of going the whole way up through toddlerhood. The big thing is I'm working on a book right now. It's called The New Mom's Guide to New Dads. You can go on my site and just do instafather.com/new mom's guide preview, and or just search for that, and you can see the first couple of chapters of it. It's all about what I think a new mom should know about what a new dad is about to experience. There's a ton of stuff out there about moms, rightly so, but there's not a lot of stuff out there of what a new dad might experience. So it's my way of saying, hey, new mom, you're doing great. If your husband's acting kind of weird, or you're like, what is going on with this guy? Here's what might be going through his head. That's the gist of it. So instafather.com/new mom's guide preview. Been working through that, but at least you can see a preview of it right now on the site.
Okay, I love it. And for anybody listening, I will put that in the show notes so you can check it out there for sure. I love it. I can't wait for the book. I think pretty much every mom needs that. I mean, it's not just the mom.
That's the hope. Yeah.
It has a big change, you know, the dad or the partner. I mean, they're going through it too. It just looks differently for them. So I love that you're creating that. That's something really needed.
I'm very well aware that it's not the same experience. It's not like the dad's giving birth. I totally get all that stuff. But like 6 months in, the dad is still going through a lot of like emotional changes as he's adjusting to this new life. And it can help to have not somewhat of a blueprint of like, okay, so if he's acting like this, here's what might be going through his head. If he's acting withdrawn, it might be because of X, Y, and Z. Just as some way for you to start a good conversation with your husband. And there's even a little bit in there just for dads too. Like, hey, don't be an idiot. Here's what your wife needs.
I love it. And then since you mentioned it, I have to ask, what was the push present that you gave your wife?
So she got a necklace. A necklace for me was like the most recent one. I did put in there. So the push present post might be one of my most popular ones, I think, because I was one of the few dads who said, yeah, moms need a push present. If you don't know what it is, it means a present you get your wife or your partner for giving birth to your kid. There's a lot of pushback out there. A lot of dads think that's a terrible idea. And I see moms say, well, the baby's the gift. Well, the baby is like a human. A gift is a gift. Like, you're allowed to get your wife a necklace and still think a baby is amazing. It doesn't mean you're saying the baby is worth the price of a necklace. It means like, I think you're amazing. Here's a nice thing to represent that. Also, this baby is cool. You can't wear a baby around your neck. It doesn't work.
I love it. Well, let me tell you, my second child, my push present that I requested was a potbelly sandwich after delivery. That's all I wanted was just a potbelly sandwich. It was just really easy, and it was
glorious and it was lovely. And I spilled mustard on my daughter's head. And that was just, the best start to being a second time mom. All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. I really love talking about this stuff, so I appreciate being here.
A big thank you to Andy for coming on the show. I've linked everything we chatted about in the show notes, so be sure to follow him online and check out his book, The New Mom's Guide to New Dads, on his site. And don't forget to click subscribe so you get the latest episodes of the This Is Parenting podcast. And if you like what you heard, leave a rating and review. You will please the podcast gods, and I'll appreciate it too. And if you've stuck around this long, then you will be rewarded with this bit of conversation Andy and I had before our show was officially recording. Enjoy.
They'll know.
Yeah, they always do, don't they?
Yeah, my wife said she just had to take a phone call in the van in the garage a day or two ago because the girls would not leave her alone, and it was like a work call. So she had to like lock herself in the van, and she said it was like a zombie movie because they're like pounding on the windows, and she needed like 2 minutes to just do a call.
Couldn't do it. Yep, couldn't do it.